Okay, then. We've just come out of closed session and we are now in open session. Before we begin the next agenda item, I do want to make a couple of comments and remarks. First, I'll note that Councillor Heffernan is attending virtually tonight. So she will be hearing and seeing everything and hearing everything virtually, and her seat will be empty. I also have some news. First of all, I'd like to start by welcoming Ashley Porchik, who is our newest employee at Middlesex Centre. Ashley joins the corporate services team as a planning and records assistant, and she's going to be helping both the corporate services area and our clerk. I also want to note that today is a very special day for residents in Delaware. It was 50 years ago today that the Delaware Lions Club was founded. 6 of the charter members are still very active members in providing service to our community, our country, and the world. And I want to recognize and acknowledge the long-term dedication to the community service of these gentlemen, who include Mr. Joe Clark, Darcy Gagir, Harold Moore, Charles Scott, John Vanderweest, and Henry Vanderweest. Of course, because of the pandemic, their celebration is postponed until such time as it's safe to get together and celebrate properly. But I want to acknowledge the significant contribution of those people. So thanks for your service. In other news in Middlesex Centre, I learned yesterday that Kylie O'Neill was elected as the 2021 Junior Farmers Association of Ontario provincial president. And Kylie is only the 4th person and the first female president from Middlesex County to be elected. And while she's definitely the first Middlesex Centre woman in the role, in that role, I'm still trying to find out whether or not she's actually the first person in that role for Middlesex Centre. But in any case, on behalf of the municipality, I want to thank Kylie for taking on this leadership role and wish her a productive and rewarding year as president. So congratulations and the very best to you in your new role, Kylie. And finally, at the last meeting, I noted that a lot of the staff members here at Middlesex Centre are involved in organizations, both professional and associations that relate to their area of expertise and so forth. And tonight I want to highlight a couple of individuals who have been busy being good partners and sharing their expertise and experience. So here we're really very fortunate that we have staff that recognize how technology can be used to improve service for our residents and also save money. And I've mentioned before how we are early adopters of Cloud Permit and other tools that allow for efficient service. So Cloud Permit was the software that allows electronic permitting, like building permits, and it's used by our building services team. So both our CAO, Michael DeLulo, on my left here, and our CBO, Arnie Marsman, are also helping spread the word to other municipalities and have given interviews to periodicals and information to the public, and to Municipal World, which is a publication that is available to everyone who works in the area, municipal context across Ontario, as well as on social media channels like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, and also the Cloud Permit Company webpage. This service that we use helped our employees manage an increase of almost 42% in permit value from 2019 to 2020. And best of all, it provided seamless service to our applicants who are now residents. So I want to acknowledge both Michael and Arnie for doing that. And the other part of this story is that LAS is the group that runs the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Business Services piece. And at the end of February, the AMO executive approved that LAS should start a procurement process to secure a partner that's going to provide e-permitting solutions to any municipality that wants to do that. They asked if Arnie, or they invited Arnie to join the procurement committee that's going to be overseeing the RFP, or the request for proposal process, and he agreed to help. So again, thanks to both Arnie and Michael for all of the work they're doing to support modernization efforts across not just our area, but across all of Ontario and even Canada. And it's really good to have that partnership and expertise shared. So Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have in the news tonight. Moving on, we have a couple of delegations tonight. We're going to be starting with a presentation from Enbridge Gas regarding the London Lines Replacement Program. And we have Steve Jellich, Director of Southwest Region Operations, and your Arnold, Manager of Operations London/Sarnia, here to present to us. And we'll just wait for them. There we go, ding.
Can folks see me?
Hey, Steve.
Okay, great. I see council, and do we? Brian Lenny, I think, is on the line. Brian, are you presenting, or is that happening with council, Middlesex Center?
I will share my screen.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, your screen.
Okay, and I can't see anybody, but as long as you can hear me, I think we're okay. So if somebody can just let me know that they can hear me, I'll start presenting.
We can see you.
You can see me. Sorry.
Oh, so when you speak, we can see you. When I'm speaking, the council picture shows up. So you'll have the floor, Steve. When you're speaking, you'll be seen as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Every time we do a virtual presentation, it's just a little bit different. No worse, no better, but just a little bit different. So thank you, Worship and members of council, for the opportunity to present this evening. Again, my name's Stephen Jellick. I am the Director for Southwest Regional Operations at Enbridge Gas, based out of London. And joining me this evening from Enbridge, as you had mentioned, Daryl Arnold. He's the manager of London Sarnia operations. We also have Alison Chong, who's the project manager for the London Replacement Project. And of course, Brian Lenny, who's our senior advisor for municipal relations. And as previously mentioned, and quite I'll say apparent by the title of our presentation, we're here to talk about the London Line Replacement Project. And it is a very significant infrastructure project that will continue to deliver both reliable and I'll say efficient natural gas for years to come in the Middlesex Center. I think before I leave this slide, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank the staff at Middlesex Center for working with us early last year and up to current. And I'll say those discussions have been going along very smoothly as I've been updated from time to time. So I thank you for that. If Brian, you can advance the slide, please. Perfect. And I guess I would draw your attention to the picture, and I would say that what you see here is a fairly large footprint across Ontario. Matter of fact, January 1st, 2019, and perhaps many of you are aware, Union Gas Limited and Enbridge Gas Distribution amalgamated, and now we have this quite large utility footprint throughout Ontario, so large that we are the largest utility in North America when you think of throughput, and we are the third largest in the number of customers that we serve in Ontario. So again, a very significant footprint, and we're proud of that, and we're reminded of sort of our focus on safety and reliability. And that's a nice segue really to the next slide. So what I would draw your attention here is, I mean, numbers do tell a story here. And the one I would cite is just under $3 billion spent in 8 years. And that's been really into the integrity of our system. And that $3 billion, that doesn't include our expenditures for large projects, nor does it take into account the dollars for day-to-day operations. So again, I would say safety is job number one at Enbridge Gas, and we're quite proud of that. Next slide, Brian. Okay, so this gives you a real good pic of sort of where we serve in the Middlesex Center. We've been proud to have been partners since 1915. I'll also say that we're quite proud that our Lobo natural gas transmission station is located in Middlesex Center. And again, proud community partners with 19 employees working at Lobo. And I do want to say that we're also happy to pay our fair share of property taxes, regardless of the fact that our assets are passive. And so obviously that means that we don't really receive snow clearing or garbage pickup, but we do see that as part of our community relationship and helping to support the communities that we're in. Next slide, please. Well, I think I said I was proud of on the previous slide. I'm also proud of on this slide. Enbridge as part of our environment, social, and governance plan. So on the environment side, we came out and announced that we have a plan to get to net zero by 2050 and an interim goal of 35% reduction in our greenhouse gases emissions intensity by 2030. You know, this is significant because I think oftentimes, you know, people or others may talk about things that are aspirational, but I think on the next slide, it gives you a sense of the four foundations or the four pillars that underpin sort of our commitment to get there. And I'll say our low carbon future is really about number one, less gas. So reducing emissions by helping customers use less gas. So that's through energy efficiency programs, promoting natural gas heat pumps. We have, for the last 20 years, have had a demand side management program that really targets, you know, residential all the way through commercial up to industrial, offering incentives and education programs to actually use better or more efficient systems. And so this is something we've been doing for 20 years and quite proud of that. The other pillar is more gas. So really more gas is replacing oil, propane with cleaner burning natural gas for either home or water heating. And another point I would make is really helping to support switching heavy duty transportation from diesel to compressed natural gas. Our third pillar is green gas. So that's reducing emissions by using carbon neutral gas. So what we're talking about here is blending hydrogen and renewable natural gas from organic waste into our distribution system. And lastly, no gas. Yes, I said no gas. And what we're talking about here is geothermal, hydrogen, and of course, renewable energy. We believe these four pillars are going to help lead us to achieve the goals that we set forth in our ESG. So with that, recognizing that time is ticking, I want to move right into the replacement project, and I want to introduce Daryl Arnold, again, our manager for Sarnia London operations. Over to you, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, and again, thank you, Council, for having us here this evening. So we're going to start at kind of the macro level of kind of what the overall London Lines replacement project is. So, the existing London Lines is a two pipeline system running from our Don facility, our Don compressor facility in Don Euphemia, and heading up through Southwest Middlesex to our existing Komoka transmission station. This original, so that's a span of about 82 kilometers. These original lines were installed between the 1930s and 1950s, and so the intent of this project is we're going to replace those two lines with a new single line pipeline system operating at a higher pressure. In addition, we're going to be installing about an 8-kilometer section of pipeline that will be a lateral from the new pipeline system up to our existing Don the Parkway transmission system. This is a $164 million investment into the existing or into the local natural gas pipeline infrastructure. As part of this project, as Steve mentioned, Enbridge undertook an extensive consultation process that included a third-party environmental report, virtual open houses, which was new for us and certainly needed in the COVID pandemic response environment, mail-outs to local residents, consultations with the conservation authorities and local Indigenous communities, and of course, regular ongoing discussions with municipal staff. Enbridge has selected Aecon as the primary contractor for this project. And we will be focusing on hiring local construction employees where we can, and sourcing local material where we can. So a very important, as Steve mentioned, a very important infrastructure project for us that is looking to increase the reliability and safety of our pipeline system, and at the same time ensuring natural gas supply to the local area. If you could flip to the next slide, please. So this is a closer look at the part of the London Lines project that's going to take place within Middlesex Center. So today, the London Lines serves hundreds of customers directly and many customers indirectly, including communities like Komoka and Kilworth. I think the main message here is that's not going to change. Any customer that's connected to our pipeline system today will be connected to the new system. As you can see, the pipeline route through Middlesex Center is going to run down Amons Road, over to Glendon Drive, and head towards Komoka Road, where we have our existing Komoka transmission station. Construction is planned to kick off this spring, so we're currently mobilizing activities right now, and we expect to be completed by December of 21. And expect that some project cleanup and restoration activities will take place in 2022. What we also expect to occur in 22 is any sort of decommissioning work that may be required as part of this project, and also any service installation and connections that we are unable to complete in 2021. And as we start to ramp up construction activity on this project, Enbridge is going to continue working with municipal staff on the project, ensuring that we're applying for and getting all the necessary permit and project road approvals, ensuring that's all in place before we kick off construction. If you go to the next slide, please, Brian. So what can residents expect during construction? So first activities, which I mentioned, have kicked off, is going to be site preparation. So mobilizing our construction yard, some tree and vegetation clearing is needed, and we're going to start stringing and welding out pipe. And as I mentioned, we expect to begin primary construction in April, following through December. Any resident who's connected to the pipeline system today will have a service interruption, a short service interruption, to disconnect them from the existing pipeline system and connect them to the new pipeline system. This is a minor inconvenience, and we will work with impacted customers to arrange this time and schedule this within what's most convenient for them. And I'd say generally, it all occurs well within a single business day. We are going to have a community liaison position as part of this project. Her name's Natasha Carr. She'll be a key person on this project to keep local residents updated of different project milestones, things like road closures or detours, keeping all stakeholders informed. She also is going to be available to answer and address any questions or concerns that residents may have throughout the project. We're also going to have a Landover relations agent as part of the project. And this individual will be working with specific landowners that are impacted to resolve any construction related matters. As you can see, we also have a dedicated email address that can be utilized to reach out to these two individuals, and also a toll-free telephone number that can be used. And as a final note, we recognize these are challenging economic times for residents in Middlesex Center, and across the province in general. So as such, the project does have a community investment budget available to support local organizations. And the community liaison person, so Natasha Carr, will be reaching out during construction to organizations across Middlesex Center and Middlesex County to understand and investigate where Enbridge can best assist. So with that, again, thank Council for having us there this evening, and certainly open up to any questions or comments.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'll turn to Council now. Are there questions? Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor to Steve, sorry. You talk about community investments, and I know the big pumping station you got on Ivan Drive a couple of years ago, you had terrible internet, so you ran a new fiber optic cable, I think with Bell down Illerton Road, along Nairn Road, and up to Ivan. And I don't know if there is a way, but most of those people on that road also have poor internet connection. And I don't expect you to come up with an answer because this is an out of the blue thing, but it would be nice if we could work something out, or the locals would kind of like to know why they can't hook up to it. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so I number one, I do have a recollection of that, but let me take it away and make sure that I have sort of the latest and the greatest in terms of a response. Okay.
Yeah, that's thank you.
You're
Right.
welcome.
Other questions? Councillor Shipley.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Steve, just a quick question, Steve. The Strathroy Gate Station, is this a new hookup or was it original? Just show by your legend that it's a new hookup.
Yeah, I'm going to pass that over specifically to Allison. I might say that again, it's just a replacement, but there are some nuances in terms of where we're routing it. So Allison, if you could jump in and just confirm and answer that question, please.
Sounds good. So the station there is an existing station that we're rebuilding, and the connection between Strathroy Gate Station on Calvert Drive and the London Line's replacement on Falcon Bridge, that section is a new section of pipe that's going to be installed to connect the rebuilt Strathroy Gate Station to the existing or to the new London lines.
Thank you,
Okay.
Allison.
Are there other questions? Okay, seeing none, I just want to say thank you kindly for the presentation. It's always interesting as well to hear what other companies, whether organizations, in addition to the kind that we are involved in, are doing with respect to renewable energies and clean energies. And that was, I think, a particularly interesting part for me. I also want to just mention that I know you'll have a massive communication effort. If there's anything at all that we here can do to help put the word out, social media or announcements, you shouldn't hesitate to reach out, and we'll do what we need to do to help you get that done. So thank you again to all of you, Stephen and Allison and Brian and Daryl, for your time tonight, and we appreciate the updates, and good luck with this big project that you've got. It's monstrous.
Well, thank you very much on your worship and council on behalf of Enbridge. It certainly is nice to know that we have good relationships and are able to actually work together to bring these projects these very important projects to fruition. So we look forward to it and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Alrighty, now we have to move on to the adoption of the minutes. The minutes for March 10th are in your package. The motion before us is that the minutes of Middlesex Center Council meeting held March 10th, 2021 be adopted as printed. Are there any errors, exceptions? No comments, and I'll move her and seconder, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda items. I want to note that item 7.2, which is entitled write-off of taxes under section 354 of the Municipal Act 2001, has been taken out. So we have to, the motion before us will be that items 7.1 through 7.1 as well as 3.5 are, as listed on our consent agenda, be adopted as recommended. Are there any questions before I call the motion? Or any, yes, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a couple of questions. The Delaware Hydro Reserve Fund, I see it's only been used a couple of times for very small things. Are there other things that it could be used for, or what all could we use that fund for?
Through the chair, thanks to Deputy Mayor. That's an interesting concept, actually, and it's something that staff are reviewing. It's a policy that was developed quite a few years ago, and so staff, I'm working with the treasurer, we're taking it upon ourselves to look at the conditions upon which we can better utilize those funds, and there could be a report coming in the not too near future.
A further question for the fire chief, if he's online. Um, the fire safety grant, which is always good news to get a grant, but.
Just, yeah, I see his name is there now. We just want to make sure and give
Oh,
you the
okay.
question.
The fire grant that he's got
There he
is good. And it's always nice to get grants from the government, but I read somewhere or heard somewhere that the fire marshal was changing the training criteria for firefighters, and I wondered how that was going to impact us in the long run.
Through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Brennan. The way our training program is set up right now, it really will not affect our training of firefighters in any way, shape, or form. In some ways, it'll actually allow us to enhance it with this grant.
Seeing no other hands, then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Arts and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 8.1, which is agreement of purchase. Okay. Agreement of purchase and sale for 79 Glendon Drive. It's a staff report regarding an agreement of purchase and sale, and our clerk will be presenting that item.
Thank you, Mayor DeVete. Through the chair, this item is a follow-up to the report presented to council on February 3rd, 2020, where direction was provided to proceed with the purchase of property, which is municipally known as 79 Glendon Drive. Based on this resolution, staff worked collaboratively with the City of London and their property division team to prepare an agreement of purchase and sale, and that's what you see appended to this evening's report. So should council authorize that the purchase proceed, staff would work to finalize the documentation that's appended, to complete the sale, and to register this appropriate information on title. So this report before you tonight is essentially an opportunity to confirm the details of that agreement, which has been prepared in accordance with the motion which was passed previously. You'll also see later in our agenda, a bylaw appears to further authorize and confirm the agreement of purchase and sale. That's all I have for comments with respect to this report, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Thank you for that report. Then, is there any question or concern? Yes, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
I don't have a problem with the purchase or anything, but do we have any idea what we would do with this parcel?
Yeah, thanks for asking for that point of clarity. We've looked at future use of this parcel of land as being potentially transferring the land to the Ministry of Parks in order for a future trail use. So we would be reaching out following at some point in the future to see if there's interest from the Ministry of Parks to acquire the land. If there's not interest for that, we do have the opportunity to have this land for potential trail use. So that's really what it's looked at, is either trail use for the municipality or transfer to the Ministry of Parks for that future trail use. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, then motion before us is that report CLK 09-2021 regarding the agreement of purchase and sale for 79 Glendon Drive be received, and that the agreement of purchase and sale for 79 Glendon Drive is attached in Appendix A be approved, and further that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement of purchase and sale for the above noted property. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on now to the next item is staff. This is a staff report regarding the appointment of a council representative to the the LVTCA, the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors, and we have again our municipal clerk James Hudson to present.
Thank you. Through the chair, this report was prompted by the receipt of correspondence requesting that council appoint a representative to the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors. The reason that this vacancy occurred was there was a result of a resignation of the current representative for Middlesex Centre. They're no longer a resident of the municipality, and as a result, the vacancy has come up at this time. Subsequently, there's been some recent changes to the Conservation Act which relate to board membership and composition of those boards. And then this necessitates that this vacancy now be fulfilled by a member of our council. So a similar requirement will be in place for us as we go about appointing members to our various conservation authorities, which we represent or have a stake in as a municipality. And there are 6 of those conservation authorities. So this vacancy has occurred midterm due to the resignation. However, when it is time to fill the remaining vacancies which occur for conservation boards, those vacancies would be filled by members of council. So in short, we're in a situation where citizen representatives no longer sit as the board representatives, and they now have council members sitting as those representatives. So this report tonight, I ask that council receive the report and that a councillor be appointed by the municipality of Middlesex Centre as the representative to the board of directors for the remaining duration of the 2018 to 2022 term. If there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, I would just note at this time that the mayor and myself placed a call for any interested parties to step forward who may wish to place their name, and Councillor Aerts was kind enough to place his name forward for this position. So we appreciate that, and I'd be seeking a resolution of council to confirm that appointment following this. Thank you.
Thank you for that report then. Are there questions? Yes, Councillor Shipley.
Through the mayor to James, just looking for some clarification. So we're on 5 watersheds. Are we looking at 5 members of council, 1 in each?
Through the mayor to Councillor Shipley, that's correct. So we're essentially looking at a member of council representing on each of the watersheds. Within the report itself, there is an opportunity to apply for a minister's exemption to the 70% membership requirement. So what that 70% membership requirement refers to is in cases where a municipality has 1 member, they can apply for 70% of their members to be comprised of a citizen member. That math works out to being either a citizen member or a council representative in our case, because we don't have multiple representatives. Some municipalities may have 5 or 6 representatives, and they would apply for an exemption for only 70% to be comprised. So, pardon me, we can apply for, we can apply for that exemption. Staff can reach out to the minister and seek an exemption of the 70%, and that's something we would bring forward or consider amongst staff before the next round of appointments as we look at all of the different representative capacities that our members of council fulfill.
Anyone else? Do you want to add anything, Councillor Arts? Oh, where? Okay.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, and that's the part I think appreciate you stepping up, and it's good of you to step in halfway through the term. There'll be people there who already been there for a while, but it's an opportunity to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. Well, there you go. Okay, perfect. So we have a motion before us that the report clerk 10/2021 regarding the appointment of council representative to the Lower Taos Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors be received, and that Councillor Arts be appointed to the municipality of Middlesex Centre as our representative to that board for the remaining duration of the 2018 to 22 term of council. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. So good luck in your new role. All right, moving on now to 8.3. Our next item is a staff report regarding the tender results for a tandem truck, and our engineer, Rob Cascadden, is going to present that report.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I forgot I was on mute and video off. So this is a very straightforward report. We went out for tender for the replacement of a tandem truck again this year. We only received two bidders that closed on the tenders. They were both below the budget. They were very close in price comparison. You can see less than $1,000 apart, which is something of that value is very close. And the budget was $380,000. So they're both roughly about $35,000 below budget. Again, just the recommendation is to proceed with the purchase of the team truck vehicle, and just seeking council approval to do so.
Okay, thank you for the report, Rob. Is there any clarification or questioning that needs to happen? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that the purchase, supply, and delivery of one 2020 Freightliner 114 SD tandem truck with snow and ice removal equipment be awarded to the lowest tender bid submission received from Team Truck in the amount of $345,875 excluding HST. And that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documents. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arndt, all in favor? Opposed? Oh, no. Okay, thank you. Everyone's, okay, that's all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thanks, Rob. That's all we have now for our staff reports. We won't be starting committee adjustment till 7 o'clock. So well, we can move down to, yeah, sure. Of course, let's get that done. Yes, we'll keep going till we get it done. Sorry, I forgot about that part. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, so correspondence is item 11 on your agenda, and there are 4 items. The motion before us is that correspondence items 11.1 through 11.4 be received as information. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates. Just before I call the vote, is there absolutely any kind of question or clarification? Yes, Deputy Mayor Brown.
Yeah, to you, Madam Mayor. Under the OPP detachment framework, we were at a meeting about all this, and they're asking for any further input. Was our CEO going to make a statement towards that?
Through the chair, thanks, Deputy Mayor. That's correct. We wanted to make sure that council was aware through this correspondence. I have till June, and I'm going to be following up, providing the necessary documentation to confirm the catchment area to help them with their review.
Is there anything else? Okay, in that case, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Brennan to give the County Council update.
Thank you. It's going to be a whole lot shorter now that we heard from Leverage. We had them at County Council yesterday, so I don't have to repeat all that. Impact made a presentation also. The assessment values of properties for this year will remain at the same level as 2021. Due to the pandemic, they can't reassess them all. So the last reassessment was done in 2016, phased in over 4 years through 2020. So 2021 assessments will remain at the 2020 level for this current year. So that's not going to change. The county, they have an assessment base of $16.7 billion throughout the county. Ann Haynes is the regional manager for this area. Impact.ca/municipalities. If anybody was looking to contact her, you could do that through that. Chief Roberts from the ambulance service presented a tender for 27 new ambulances over the course of 3 years, 9 units per year, and they've gone up $10,000 a unit from the last ones they bought at $153,000. So they've gone up by $10,000, but that was approved for the next 3 years, the purchase of ambulances. Crossax building that the ambulance service rents was renewed for another year at the same price. They are looking at perhaps someday building a new station somewhere, but for now they renewed that 1-year lease. There was on the website you can contact and see all the remunerations for councillors and the warden. They were all presented. The asset management program, the county got $50,000 for their asset management program for a grant. And other than that, that was the bulk of it. Just a reminder, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock is the virtual visit from the warden across the county. So there will be a Zoom meeting tomorrow night at 7 for anybody that wants to go in and hear what the warden has to say. And she was quite optimistic that hopefully by June 16th, the warden's golf tournament will be able to happen. So we'll see what happens there. Other than that, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions for the deputy? Okay, seeing none. In that case, we are done now. Yeah, so we'll have 15-minute recess and reconvene at 7 o'clock to start the public portion of the meeting. Thank you. We're ready to go. Thank you very much, Heather. And it's 7 o'clock, so we need to start the Committee of Adjustment. Could I have a motion that council adjourn the regular meeting in order to sit as the Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider a number of applications? A mover, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott seconding. Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. So before we begin, I'll just give the general introduction and the order of proceedings. Members of the public that are participating virtually in this evening's public meeting have previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting. If anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the minor variance applications being considered tonight, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of proceedings is the same for each application, and the order of procedure shall be as follows. First, I will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Then, the municipal clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. Third, the applicant or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. The public then will be asked for their comments and questions. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. The committee may then ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And finally, I will then consider motions regarding the applications. So we're ready now for the first item. It's application for minor variance. Dan Fitzgerald, the planner, is going to give the overview of the planning report, please.
Thank you, members of the committee. Through the chair, my name is Dan Fitzgerald, planner with Middlesex Center. Just before I begin, I will share my screen so that everyone has a location map so that we can see what we're looking like. So this application that is before the committee today is with respect to a property that is located at 12 Edgeview Crescent in Kilworth. The purpose of the application is a request for minor variance to reduce the interior side yard setback requirement, as well as increase the maximum permissible site coverage for the main dwelling, as well as any associated accessory buildings in the urban residential first density or UR1 zone for the purpose of constructing a single detached dwelling. The subject property is approximately 880 square meters in area with a frontage of 22 meters and is located in the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area on the west side of Edgeview Crescent, north of the intersection at Edgeview Drive and Westbrook Drive in the Southwind subdivision. The lands are currently vacant and are part of an approved subdivision. The lands are bounded by residential lots on all sides. They are designated as settlement area in the county of Middlesex plan, residential in the Middlesex Center official plan, and zone urban residential first density or UR1 zone in the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. Respecting the variance, the applicant is requesting, as noted, a minor variance for the interior side yard setback to 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the Middlesex Center's bylaw does require a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters on one side and 2.5 meters on the other side. The applicant is also requesting to increase the maximum permissible lot coverage from 35% for the main dwelling, an additional 3% for an accessory structure, to 40% for all structures. The effect of the proposal, again, is to facilitate the construction of a single-story, single detached dwelling. Planning did not receive any comments from the public during circulation of the application, and agencies and internal departments had no objections. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a residential home, which is consistent with the official plan residential designation. Also, the intention of an interior side yard setback requirement in the zoning bylaw is to provide spatial separation and access to the property. Staff believe the proposed reduction would not adversely impact spatial separation as well as access intent of the zoning bylaw. As such, staff are of the opinion that the format of the development is desirable for the neighborhood. The general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the total lot coverage restrictions in residential areas is to ensure that sufficient amenity space is available on each property. Planning staff is satisfied that the requested relief would not have a significant detrimental impact on the amenity space available on this subject land. Staff also feel that it would be appropriate given the applicant is requesting to build a one-story home, necessitating the increased footprint to achieve the desired size. So as noted in the report, staff is of the opinion that the interior side yard reductions, as well as increase the maximum lot coverage, are considered minor in nature and can be considered appropriate development for this subject site as the location of the proposed residential dwelling is not anticipated to cause any adverse impacts on surrounding uses. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act tests and recommends that minor variance application A2/2021 be approved. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Dan. I'll note that Vandermolen Homes are the applicants and have not registered to speak. No additional members of the public have requested to participate, and there are no comments that have been received by the clerk. I'll ask the committee now if there are any questions from any members. Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to Dan, I just want the applicant to understand this 40% lot coverage down the road. If they decide they're going to build an accessory building and they're going to try to squeeze past the 40%, that's a line in the sand that we're not going to cross. Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions? Okay, I have one. It's more of a general question though. In your presentation, Dan, you noted that this is again accommodating a single-story family residence as opposed to a two-story family residence, and that obviously when you take off a story, there's some sort of spread. We've had cases in the past where this has happened in different developments. I think it was number 45 on Crestview that we saw last time we were here, or maybe I've got the order mixed up. There were two homes on Crestview that we've already had this conversation about. It seems to me that there might be some efficiency to be had if we were to consider, or if it is possible for you to consider, as if I ask staff to look into it. I just want your thoughts on, does it make sense maybe to have some kind of a blanket provision covering these properties in this development, in that area, to avoid this kind of, I know, it looks like a bit of a make work program to me, and it's kind of over and over and redundant. You're kind of nodding. Is this something that we can entertain or ask? Is it possible to do this? Does it make sense to do it? I don't necessarily need an answer now, but I would ask maybe staff to look into that and come back with a suggestion of how this might be streamlined. It might also be great for business because people know that they can build a certain kind of, that their plan for this type of home would be accommodated. So unless I don't know about other councillors, if I'm offside here or out of line, or if you have concerns about that, we can have a little chat about it maybe quickly. Okay, all right. If I could ask the staff maybe to come back with on that.
Through the chair, maybe just to give a bit of direction. So if that's something that obviously you're sitting as committee right now, but if that's something that council would like to have considered, council could enter in a motion to direct staff when sitting as council to go back and look at potential regulations or through a zoning bylaw amendment update to look at provisions for single-story homes to increase in maximum lot coverage area.
Okay, I've just asked the clerk for clarification. He said we can do that because we are the same members as council. So, yeah, so we'll do that after. Okay, so if there are no more questions on this application, then we have a motion before us. It is that minor variance application A2-2021 filed by Vandermolen Homes for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish an interior side yard setback of 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the bylaw requires the minimum interior setback of 1.5 meters on one side and 2.5 meters on the other, and permit a maximum lot coverage of 40% for the main dwelling and all accessory buildings, where the maximum lot coverage for the main dwelling is 35% with an additional 3% permitted for accessory buildings. The legal description is noted, and this minor variance only is applicable to a proposal to build a single-story dwelling, and further that the reasons for granting the minor variance are that the request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Centre's official plan. It complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Centre's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. The motion is before us. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And there are none opposed, so that is carried. Thank you for that report, Dan, and we can move now to the next item, which is file number A3-2021.
Through the chair, so yeah, A3-2021. The purpose, in effect, of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from Middlesex Centre's comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum interior side yard setback required in the urban residential first density zone. The applicant is requesting a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the comprehensive zoning bylaw currently requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters on one side and 2.5 meters on the other side. So the effect of this proposal, again, is to facilitate the construction of a single
Oh, we lost him.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now again. Sorry, you dropped off for a bit, Dan.
Did you hear the introduction?
Oh, the introduction. I forgot the last part. We did get through the first part, but not. It's a bungalow. Yeah.
So they're requesting a minor variance to reduce the interior side yard setbacks to 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the bylaw currently requires 1.5 meters on one side and 2.5 on the other.
Correct.
The subject property is located at 246 Union Avenue in Kamoka. It's approximately 604 square meters in area with a frontage of 14 meters. It is located in the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area on the west side of Union Avenue. The lands are currently vacant and are part of an approved subdivision. The lands are bounded by an institutional use to the west, residential to the south, institutional use to the east, and a residential subdivision to the north in the form of single detached dwellings. The lands are designated settlement area in the County of Middlesex official plan, residential in Middlesex Centre's official plan, and zoned urban residential first density zone in Middlesex Centre's zoning bylaw. No comments have been received from the public during circulation of the application, and no agencies or internal departments had listed any objections. So staff again note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a residential home, which is consistent with the official plan residential designation. Also, the intention of the interior side yard setback requirement in the zoning bylaw is to provide spatial separation as well as access to the rear of the property. Staff do believe that the proposal in terms of the reduction would not adversely impact the spatial separation or access component of the zoning bylaw. Also, in review of the larger neighborhood, it is noted that existing zoning in close proximity to this particular lot does permit interior side yard setbacks of 1.2 meters. As such, staff are of the opinion that the format of development is desirable for this particular neighborhood. As noted in the report, staff is of the opinion that the interior side erections are considered minor in nature and can be considered appropriate development for the subject property, as the location of the proposed residential dwelling is not anticipated to cause any adverse impacts to surrounding uses. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act tests and does recommend that the minor variance application A3/2021 be approved.
Okay, thank you for the report, Dan. I understand that Mr. Murad is on the line. Would you like to add anything, sir? There we go. I can see you're coming on. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hello, Mr. Murad. I was wondering if you have any additional comments or anything you'd like to add.
I don't, sir.
Okay, then, thank you very much for attending. As the planner noted, we have no additional comments from anyone or participants. I'll ask, does the committee have any on this application? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion before us that minor variance application A3/2021 filed by Mr. Murad for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish an interior side yard setback of 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the bylaw requires an interior side setback of 1.5 meters on one side and 2.5 meters on the other side for the property legally listed as described in our document, that it be granted. And the reasons for granting the application, minor variance application, are that they comply with our official plan, our zoning bylaw. It's a minor request in nature, and it represents appropriate development on the subject property. I would entertain a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Arts and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And we can move to the next item then, which is file A4/2021.
Through the chair, so the purpose and effect of this particular application for minor variance is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as it relates to the minimum interior as well as rear yard setback for a pool. The applicant is requesting a minimum interior side yard setback and rear yard setback of 0.6 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior and rear side yard setback of 1.5 meters. The effect of the proposal would be to facilitate the construction of an above ground hot tub. So maybe just a point of clarification from council. I know we referred to a pool as well as in terms of the standards. So the definition of pool in a bylaw includes anything below 2 feet in depth. And in this case, a hot tub would be considered a pool, which extends beyond that. So the subject property is Unit 13 at 41 Earls Court Terrace and constitutes a unit in a vacant land condominium. The unit is approximately 417.5 square meters in area with a frontage of approximately 13.7 meters and is located within the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area. The lands are bounded by residential uses on all sides, predominantly in the form of single detached dwellings. They are designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and zone an urban residential first density exception UR121 in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Planning did not receive any comments from the public during circulation of the application and did not receive any concerns from agencies or internal. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a pool in the format of an above grade hot tub, which is located in the rear yard of the property. The application has been reviewed against 4 Planning Act tests, as indicated in the report. The proposed reduction to the interior side yard as well as rear yard for a hot tub are considered minor in nature. They meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw and are appropriate and desirable, as the location of the proposed hot tub is not anticipated to cause any adverse impacts on surrounding uses. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act test and recommends that minor variance application A4/21 be approved, subject to the condition outlined in the report that states that it only applied to an above ground hot tub. Thank you, and available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for the report again. Mr. Coleman is on the line. Is there anything that you want to add or emphasize or comment on?
Hi there. No, there isn't. I just wanted to be available if anyone had questions, but otherwise, I'm just happy with what Dan shared.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to the committee then. Are there any questions, clarifications required? Yes, Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to Dan. Above ground jacuzzi, I'm assuming it's going to have a deck on this. How does the deck work in relation to the setbacks, the side and the rear setback?
Through the chair. So my understanding in this particular situation is that the hot tub is actually does not have a deck around it. Maybe Andrew could fill in, but the actual separation between, if approved, would be 2 meters from the edge of the hot tub to the edge of the unit border, which in this case acts as a property line.
Okay, so
Yeah,
maybe
and I can clarify that there is no deck around this hot tub.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from any member? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion before us that the minor variance application A3 2021 filed by Andrew Kuhlman for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish an interior side yard and rear yard setback of 0.6 meters for a pool, whereas the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw requires minimum interior side yard and rear yard setback for a pool of 1.5 meters. And that would be for the property described as Unit 13 in the vacant land condominium COND 840 in the municipality of Middlesex Center. And that the reduction of the rear and interior side yards only apply to an above ground hot tub interpreted as a pool in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And furthermore, that the reasons for granting this variance is that they comply with the general intent of the Middlesex Center official plan, our comprehensive zoning bylaw. That is the minor request, and that the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for your attendance, Mr. Kuhlman and Dan. Oh, well, that's the end of it. We're done
Thank
then
you.
with, yes, good night. We're done with the this part of our meeting, and we need to move now into public meetings. Could I have a motion that the Committee of Adjustment reconvene as council to move into planning public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider the planning applications listed in the agenda for this evening? Mover? Councillor Shipley, and seconder, Councillor Arts, all in favor? And we can, oh, do we do it at this section? Yeah, so we'll do it in public. Yeah, at the end. Okay, so I don't know if you heard that. We'll do that motion at the end of the public meeting when we're sitting now as council. Okay, sorry for that delay. I just want to make opening remarks again for the members who are joining now. So there are members of the public that are participating virtually in this evening's public meeting, and they've previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting. If anyone wants further notification of any of the applications being considered tonight, I ask to please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have any questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and to uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of proceedings is the same. So briefly, I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and to present the report. And then the clerk will present additional comments from received circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. The applicant or agent will then have a chance to speak to the application. After that, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments. Again, please make sure that you do state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. The committee will then ask questions of the applicant and or staff, and then we will consider motions with respect to the application. So now moving to the first item, which is consent application B26-2020, which is for 131 Harris Road in Delaware. And Dan Fitzgerald is again planner who's going to give the report. Go ahead, Dan.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor, and to all members of council. The purpose of the application tonight here before council, which is B26-2020, is to seek consent from council to sever a residential lot from an existing parcel of land in Delaware, which is located at 131 Harris Road, with the effect of establishing a new residential lot that would accommodate the future construction of a single detached. So the subject property is a 13-acre parcel located on the north side of Harris Road, west of the intersection at Harris Road and Martin Road in Delaware. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling and is on private services. The applicant is requesting consent to sever a lot that would have a frontage of approximately 36.1 meters on Harris Road and an area of approximately 3,610 square meters, or 0.89 of an acre. And the retained would have a frontage of approximately 20 meters on Harris Road with an area of approximately 12.15 acres. The lands are designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in the local official plan, and subject to special policy area number 3. They are also zoned existing use, or EU, in the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Notice of the application has been circulated to the public as well as agencies and internal departments in advance of this meeting, and no concerns were received prior to writing the report, and any recommendations that staff have made have been included as conditions listed in the recommended consent. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and local official plan do generally permit lot creation and promote infill and intensification to achieve growth objectives within existing settlement boundaries where appropriate. Policy also generally speaks to servicing hierarchies and clarifies that development should proceed within settlement areas on full municipal services. In this particular case, the lands are proposed to be privately serviced, which is permitted in Special Policy Area 3 of the local official plan, so long as the lands do front onto an existing and established roadway, which in this case is Harris Road. Additionally, while this application does not take into consideration a zoning bylaw amendment, a condition of the application would require the owner to rezone the severed and remnant parcel, as the current existing use zone would not be met. Given the proposed parameters of the lot, planning staff are confident that the severed lands would be able to meet an appropriate zone if approved under separate application by council. This type of development is the preferred form, as it promotes a more efficient use of land and infrastructure while also reducing the need for an expansion of the settlement area boundary. So given the above, planning staff are recommending that subject application be approved, subject to all the conditions as outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. We don't have any persons that wish to speak to this, so and there are no comments that have been received. So I'll entertain questions from the committee at present. Is there anything that? Yes, Councillor Arts, go ahead.
Through your mayor to Dan, this is just for clarification for me. The 12 acres that's going to be left, there cannot be a house built on that unless they come back to us, correct?
So through the chair, yes, that's correct. The existing zoning as existing use only permits basically the lot to remain as currently is. So as a condition of the consent, the owner would be required to rezone the lands, which at that time council could consider whether it be restricting development on the remnant parcel or whatever that might look like at that particular time.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. I just want to clarify as well. This is severance. We're only going to have the land left over and one piece of land that's going to have one house on it, correct? Just you use the word development, and so I just wanted to clarify it. It's one house going on the new piece of land, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. The intent is that the severed portion of lands would accommodate one single detached dwelling through a subsequent zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. Dan, quick question about the retained parcel. I know that we've requested that both the retained parcel and the new parcel has to be rezoned. The new one makes sense to me. The retained parcel, would it not just remain EU, or does it, we're asking them to rezone it? What would the options for rezoning be? Or what would we kind of request?
So through the chair, the existing use zone in the bylaw specifically stipulates things like area and frontage. So if council did not support the idea of residential development on that remnant portion, it would be rezoned to a site-specific existing use zone, which would encapsulate the reduced size as well as frontage. However, the applicant could also apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to change that land to a residential use. And then that would just be subject to council consideration through a future application.
Thank you.
No follow-ons then? Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, then I will call a vote. The motion. Okay, so I don't know if you heard that, Dan. Mr. and Mrs. Abrams are on the line and wish to comment to the file. I can see Helen and David on the screen. Hello?
Can you hear us?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay. We actually just had a few questions. Some of them have already been answered, and you'll have to forgive us. We don't speak council, but specifically to the retained lands, what can they do later with it? Like, we see that it's got, I assume CA means conservation authority, regulated and things like that. Can they apply to make that into a residential development, like a subdivision, using specifically that 20-meter gap as a roadway that remains as frontage?
So, Mr. Abrams,
yes.
The matter before us is with regard to the consent application for 131.
Yeah, okay, then I'll just add one bit to it. How does this severance of creating that new lot affect the retained property or the retained acreage there in its future use?
Yeah, I'll ask Dan to answer or to clarify that, the language around that.
Through the chair to members of council. So with this particular lot, keep in mind this lot is zoned, or sorry, is designated for residential use in the official plan. So development on this entire parcel is something that is considered as appropriate in your existing official plan. With that said, there is also special policy area 3 designation that applies to this particular parcel, which does state that development can only occur in such instances that municipal services are effectively extended within this area of Delaware, which would include waste as well as water. So in this particular instance, it certainly lends itself to the potential for future development. However, with the stipulation that special policy area still applies, and that the lands, Delaware in general would have to be fully serviced before any future development would be considered in terms of a subdivision.
Okay, thank you for that. Does that give you a little clarity, Mr. Abrams?
A little bit. I'm still, with respect to the remaining frontage on the retained lands, that 20 meters, what can be done with that? Like you're not going to put a residential dwelling on the front.
That question relates to, that is part of the application that we're looking at tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess if perhaps if you want to start planning some of the rules around development there and what opportunities people might have would be best answered on a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, and I think then you'll have a conversation as opposed to sort of a question and answer period.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Thank you. Is there anything else from committee then? No. Okay, so we were just getting ready to, I was just getting ready to call a vote. The motion before us is that consent application B26, 2020, filed by Phil Patton in order to sever a residential lot with a frontage of approximately 36.1 meters on Harris Road, a depth of approximately 100 meters and an area of about 0.89 acre, and the retained frontage, of approximately 20 meters on Harris Road, and an area of approximately 12.15 acres on a property legally described as Part Lot 15305 in the municipality of Middlesex Center, commonly known as 131 Queen Street, be granted, and that the consent be subject to 16 conditions as listed in the documents, and further that the reasons for granting the consent include that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, it conforms with the Middlesex County official plan and the Middlesex Center official plan, and that it complies with the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Scott, Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you, Dan. Moving on now to number 10.2, 24176 Clark Road.
Through the chair. So application before council tonight is B1 2021, which the purpose and effect of consent application would be to sever a surplus farm residence on a lot with a frontage of approximately 63.4 meters on Clark Road in an area of approximately 0.99 acres from a remnant farm parcel with a proposed frontage of 261 meters on Elginfield Road in an area of approximately 69 acres. The effect would be to dispose of a residence deemed surplus to the owner's farming operation as a result of a consolidation. So as a note to council, while there is an interim control bylaw that is in effect to pause applications of this nature, this particular application being heard tonight was submitted in advance of council passing that interim control bylaw. And as such, council can make a decision on the application in compliance with the conditions outlined in that application. So the applicant has also submitted a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment with the consent application. where the purpose and effect of that zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone the severed lands from an agricultural A1 zone to a surplus residential SR zone in order to recognize the residential use of that property. The retained lands are proposed to be rezoned to an agricultural, or sorry, from an agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural no residence or A3 zone, which would remove the future ability to construct any additional residential properties on the remnant farmlands. The subject property as a whole is approximately 70 acres and is located on the east side of Clark Road, on the southeast corner of the intersection at Clark Road and Elginfield Road. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling, a solar panel, and agricultural lands which are in crop production. The retained residential lands are serviced by private services in the form of a septic system and a well, and the property is surrounded by agricultural lands in crop production. The lands are designated agricultural according to the municipality's official plan and zoned agricultural A1 zone according to the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. In circulation of the application, planning did not receive any comments from the public pertaining to the proposed severance or zoning bylaw amendment, and no comments or concerns were raised from external agencies, and any internal comments that did calculation have also been incorporated to the recommended conditions of consent. Generally, provincial policy, the county official plan, as well as local official plan do permit surplus farmhouse dwelling severances, as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring. The lands contain either municipal or private services. The dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999, and that no new residence is permitted to be established, as well as access to the lands is maintained. So as identified in the report, planning staff is satisfied that the criteria for the proposed severance of the surplus farm residents on the lands have been met or can appropriately be addressed through the conditions of consent. So based on the above, staff are recommending that consent file B1 2021 be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report. And additionally, staff are recommending that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, which is ZBA 2 2021, be approved, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council once an approved and deposited reference plan has been provided to the municipality. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Then I understand that the Vanden Heuvels are on the line. Is there anything at all that you'd like to add or comment on?
No, thank you, Dan. We have nothing to add. Just wanted to be here if anybody had any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll then turn to the council members. Are there any questions from anyone? I see shaking of heads. Okay, well, I think this is fairly straightforward then. The motion before us is that the consent application B1 2021 filed by Tony and Lisa Vanden Heuvel. I have Heuvel here. Okay. It's just a typo, that's all. It's all. In order to sever residence surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation on a lot with a frontage of approximately 63.4 meters on Clark Road and an area of approximately 0.99 acres, and retained having a frontage of approximately 261.6 meters on Elginfield Road and an area of approximately 69 acres from the legal description of the lot in the township of Middlesex Center, County of Middlesex, be granted. There are 11 conditions, and further, the reasons for granting this consent include the fact that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement, County of Middlesex official plan, and our own Middlesex Center official plan. And subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. And there's a rezoning recommendation that the zoning bylaw amendments at BA 2-2021 filed by Tony and Lisa Vanden Heuvel for the lands legally described as part of the Township of Middlesex Center in the County of Middlesex, commonly known as 24176 Clark Road, to rezone severed lands from the agricultural A1 to the surplus residential SR zone and the severed lands from the agricultural A1 zone to the no residence A3 zone be granted, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration once deposited reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the municipality. Could I have a mover, please, and a second? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. So that's it. Thank you very much. And we can move now to 10.3, which is the ZBA filed by Roy and Heather Bloomfield. We're just waiting for Marion to come on. Oops. There we are. Hello, Marion.
Sorry, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll get started if you don't mind. The municipality did receive an application for a zoning bylaw amendment on the lands known as 12519 12 Mile Road. The lands are located on the south side of 12 Mile Road and east of Van Eyck Road. The lands are approximately 20 hectares in area and or about 50 acres and is actively farmed. The applicant is requesting a temporary use zone for 3 years in order to construct a new dwelling while keeping the existing dwelling on the lands. Once the new dwelling is built or at the end of the 3-year period, whichever comes first, the existing dwelling will be removed from the property. So this type of request is generally consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Middlesex Centre official plan as it relates to permitting a farm-related dwelling. The application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and staff. Staff did not receive any comments from area residents. And we did not receive any comments from agencies as well. However, municipal staff had commented on this application. There's no objections. However, Public Works and Engineering have requested that the applicant submit a deposit of $10,000 and enter into an agreement with the municipality to ensure the removal of the existing residence once that new residence is built and occupied. This request and draft agreement was provided to the applicant before this public meeting. So as such, planning staff determined that the requested zoning bylaw amendment for a temporary use zone for a period of 3 years is consistent with all applicable planning policies, including the Middlesex Centre official plan. As such, planning staff recommend that the application be approved and that the owner enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality and submit a deposit of $10,000. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I understand that Roy and Heather are on the line. If they'd like to comment on this application or add anything? No? Okay. I see Heather shaking her head. So they're on. Okay, good. So I don't want to cut anyone off. So there aren't any other public members or comments. So I'll ask, does anyone on council have a question? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 01-2021 filed by Roy and Heather Bloomfield to permit in order to permit 2 single detached dwellings on one property for up to 3 years to allow a new residence to be constructed on the land be approved, and that the owner be required to enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality and submit a deposit of $10,000 to ensure the removal of the existing residence. Could I have a mover and a second? Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Marion, and you can move on now to Stonefield Lane.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the municipality received an application to remove a holding symbol on lands known as 93 Stonefield Lane in Ilderton. The lands are located on the south side of Stonefield Lane and east side of Hyde Park Road. The lands are also part of the Clear Skies subdivision as phase 2 and one of the 2 medium density residential blocks in the subdivision. So the applicant is requesting that the holding symbol or the H6 be removed from the lands in order to commence development. The prerequisite for removal of the holding symbol is to undertake a public site plan review process prior to the approval of any development. And the applicant had fulfilled these conditions through the zoning bylaw amendment, site plan approval, and plan of condominium process in June and September of 2020. Additionally, the development agreement was entered into with the municipality and registered on title in February of 2021. The notice of intent to remove the hold was circulated to residents in accordance with the Planning Act. Staff did receive a few questions about the development proposal itself, but did not receive any objections to the H removal. As such, planning staff are satisfied that the public site plan review process was undertaken and recommend that the holding symbol be removed from the subject lands. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation then. Does the committee have any questions? I don't see any. So the motion before us is that the request by Sifton Properties Limited on behalf of 1960634 Ontario Incorporated to remove the H6 holding symbol from the zoning of the land known legally as Concession 11, Part Lot 24 in Middlesex Center be approved. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, and now the final, oh no, sorry. Yeah, so this is the last item for, right, 10.5. The official plan amendment, OPA 53, and zoning bylaw amendments, that zoning bylaw amendment 29/20, which is filed by Melanie Horton on behalf of Ken Mays, and Marion is going to present the planning report on this one as well. You can go ahead, Marion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, and hopefully everyone can see the screen that I've pulled up. The municipality had received an application for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known as 9548 and 9584 Glendon Drive in Kamoka. The lands are located on the north corner of Glendon Drive, or County Road 14, and Amiens Road. Combined, the two parcels are approximately 139 acres in area and currently used for agricultural uses. However, they do contain residential dwellings and some accessory structures such as built garages and sheds that front onto Glendon Drive. The lands also abut the Canadian National Railway, and immediately to the west of Amiens Road is the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. Agricultural lands with farm residences surround the property to the west, south, north, and east. Additionally, it is within proximity to the Oriole Park community and as well residential neighborhoods within Kamoka. So through this official plan amendment, the applicant requests to apply the aggregate resources overlay to a portion of the lands. Similarly, the applicant is requesting to rezone the lands or a portion of the lands to extractive industrial. Both the amendments would only apply to the lands that are subject to an Aggregate Resources Act license that the applicant applied for with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. So I will clarify that the site plan and proposed operation plans to obtain that license through the Aggregate Resources Act is approved and granted by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. This process has separate consultation requirements that area residents may have participated in previously between 2018 and 2020. But the purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments applications are to permit the use on the lands and amend the local planning documents. So the effect of the amendments would permit a new aggregate extraction operation with below table extraction. The site for the entire operation or the licensed area is approximately 24.7 hectares or just around 61 acres in area. And the extraction itself is about 21.3 hectares or 52.63 acres. The operations are proposed to have a single entrance onto Amiens Road, which is just south of the Canadian National Railway line. The proposed annual tonnage limit is 200,000 tons with a total resource volume of 3.7 million tons over the expected lifespan of 15 to 20 years. So as you can see in the site plan on the screen, the extraction will occur in phases, beginning with area 1 and ending in area 3. And the final phase is rehabilitation, where the applicant proposes a large pond and some shoreline area around the property. So the lands are located within the settlement area of Komoka and designated settlement employment and strategic settlement employment in the official plan. There are also some portions of the lands that contain natural heritage features or contain hazards and are designated as such. The lands are also currently zoned agricultural or A1. So the provincial policy statement is generally in support of aggregate extraction, especially where it is contributing to a long-term supply and it's made close to markets as possible. Additionally, any extraction shall be undertaken in a manner which minimizes social, economic, and environmental impacts. The PPS also highlights the importance of employment lands for short and long-term needs, and it leaves it to the municipality to determine the appropriate balance of uses for the future, as well as considering other factors such as public health and safety, natural heritage, and infrastructure. The county and local official plan both identify settlement areas as the places to direct growth and new development in order to develop orderly and efficiently and continue to protect some of the agricultural areas. Within the settlement employment and strategic employment designations, they further identify the importance of these lands to the municipality as well as the county as a place to attract economic investment to the lands, primarily due to its size, proximity to the large employment base within Komoka Kilworth, proximity to the 400 series highway, major urban areas of London and Strathroy, and as well access to the railway and county road. The requested aggregate overlay will not remove the settlement employment or strategic employment designations, but will establish that the lands are suitable for aggregate extraction as an interim use. And once the extraction and rehabilitation is complete, the lands are intended to be returned for the use for employment use. The requested extractive industrial zone would also permit the extraction and associated operations like asphalt plant and concrete batching plants. Circulation of the application was provided to area residents in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing this report, the municipality received correspondence from area residents related to the Aggregate Resources Act, which was before the municipality had received any of the Planning Act applications. The letters of objection were directed to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and outlined concerns related to long-term land use considerations, land use compatibility, traffic noise, and hydrogeology. Staff also had discussions with area residents over the phone prior to the public meeting. Again, some of the concerns that they brought attention to related to noise and dust, increased traffic along Glendon Drive, water quality and quantity concerns, compatibility with existing residential areas, and the future use of the employment lands. Additionally, the municipality received letters from the public ahead of this public meeting, which have been shared with council. They are quite comprehensive, so I'll just highlight that they do bring attention to dust and noise and living within proximity to the pit, well water quality and supply, traffic along Glendon Drive, concerns about property values, water drainage, and the loss of employment lands. Additionally, the applications were circulated to staff and agencies. The Public Works and Engineering Department had identified concerns with the future development potential in Komoka, especially as the municipality has limited lands west of the municipal boundary of Komoka and can't naturally extend. The subject lands are also prime employment lands within proximity to the highway and prime for potential expansion of servicing from Komoka. It is also expected that it will be easier to find another aggregate location that is well suited for that purpose versus finding well-suited employment lands within the municipality. There is also concern that if the pit is approved, a future application will come in for an extension of the operations south towards Glendon Drive. And further, if rehabilitation plans make it difficult for the use of employment lands in the future. If approved, the municipality requests that Amiens Road be fully upgraded from the site entrance to Glendon Drive. The chief building official had also identified some concerns related to noise and dust that could be generated from the operations and its impact on the Camoga settlement area. Concerning economic development, the CBO recognizes the importance of the location of the lands for long-term employment uses. The Middlesex County engineer is also satisfied with the entrance onto Amiens Road and would not support any direct entrance onto Glendon Drive. However, upgrades to the intersection of Amiens and Glendon may be required. We also received correspondence from Strathroy Caradog. They're generally satisfied with the response that the applicant had provided to them related to transportation and the use of Amiens Road and Glendon Drive. However, they did not comment directly on the planning application. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority had also provided comments throughout the licensing process and now through the Planning Act applications. Generally, they do not oppose the official plan amendment or the zoning bylaw amendment applications. However, they do request that there be implementation of monitoring or mitigation measures to ensure the long-term protection of natural heritage features. And finally, planning staff have reviewed the applications and recognize the importance of the strategic employment areas as well as the need for aggregate resource supply. Planning staff have a few concerns that I will just provide to council. First, there is concern about the impacts of the new aggregate extraction operation on the subject lands as well as the surrounding land uses. Staff also note that generally aggregate extraction occurs in rural areas and are considered interim uses. This allows settlement areas to be the focus for growth during the planning period of 20 to 25 years. There are examples of aggregate operations that exist within or nearby settlement areas, including the one in London, Guelph, St. Mary's, and in Wellington and Brant counties. However, staff were unable to identify brand new operations within settlement areas to fully understand the impacts of establishing an operation. Staff also want to bring attention to the ability to expand the operation in the future to towards Glendon Drive and the consumption of all the employment lands within this area, especially where rehabilitation will result in a pond which is not suitable for a future development. Generally, staff is concerned with the effective removal of the lands from employment areas, as this cannot be replicated as such within the municipality and in some instances within the county. Further, this extraction operation will hinder investment into the area in the short and the long term. And lastly, staff is concerned with the below water table extraction, which will impact private water well supply for existing uses within Middlesex Centre and Strathroy Caradog. The reports that are presented to council tonight are for information purposes. As such, we would like to initiate discussion and solicit feedback from staff, from council and the public, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Just before we move on to the next, we have Melanie Horton, who is the applicant and has registered to speak to the application, and will be joined by Bill Bradshaw and Lloyd Johnson. But before we just start this public part and all the comments and discussion or presentations that we're getting from the public as well, I just want to reiterate a point that you made in the presentation, Marianne, and that is that this is not about an aggregate license. This conversation is a planning session. So we're talking about the official plan amendment part of the equation. So there are really two distinct parts to this whole conversation. Aggregate licensing is the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Natural Resources. Tonight, this is a planning discussion about an official plan amendment as it relates to our municipality. So I just want to preface that and make sure that we keep that in mind before we get into conversation. Maybe veer off the track a little bit. So I'll move then now to Ms. Horton. There you are. Okay, do you want to go ahead and speak to the application?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of council. You can hear me, I hope.
All good, and we can see you too.
Great. And Lloyd Johnston from Johnson Brothers is here, as well as Bill Bradshaw. And Bill Bradshaw managed the Aggregate Resources Act application. So they'll likely be able to answer some questions that council or members of the public may have. I did have a couple of slides. I think I'm going to share the screen here. Let me see if this works here. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay. And I'd like to thank Marion she's provided a very thorough overview of the application. So thank you very much. There's some duplication here, so I won't spend a lot of time on the summary slide. I think you've got a very good sense from the presentation we just heard. One thing I would like to mention is you've noted that there's, as Marion noted, part of the application involves extending that aggregate resource area, and that identifies where the resource exists in the municipality. And in fact, it's quite extensive through Komoka, as I'm sure the members of council are aware. In this particular case, a resource investigation, so a test pitting program was undertaken and confirmed the 3.7 million tons of sand and gravel on the site. The majority of that is below the water table. So anything from 1.5 meters above the water table to below is considered below water table by M&R. And I think 80 to 90% of the resource here would be below the water table. There's no crushing proposed on this site. It's screening only. And there's a number of technical reports that were provided. They're provided with the planning applications, but those were prepared for the aggregate resource application, and they're listed there. I'd just like to give a bit of an overview of the process to date. And you've heard that there's a separate approval requirement through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry under the Aggregate Resources Act. That application was actually submitted early in 2018. And as Marion mentioned, the ARA has a separate notification and consultation process. It was initiated in May 2018 through to July 27th, 2018, and there was a public information session at that time. There were in total 5 letters of objection received from the public and a number of agency objections as well through that period. So over the next 1.5 to 2 years, Mr. Bradshaw and the Johnston brothers worked with Ministry of Natural Resources, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority to resolve the technical issues that had been raised by the agencies. And some of the things that were discussed during that period related to impacts on the creek, groundwater impacts, noise and dust. So all of those issues were reviewed by the agencies. And at this time, there are no outstanding objections from any of the provincial agencies or from the Conservation Authority. So with the revisions that have been made to the initial plans and the conditions on the plans, the agencies are satisfied with the application that's before you today. There were response letters also provided in an effort to address the landowner concerns that were raised. And the Aggregate Resources Act process allows up to 2 years to try and resolve those objections. At the end of that period, there's still 2 outstanding objections. And in that situation, the Ministry of Natural Resources automatically refers the application to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal or LPAT. So the ARA application will be going to LPAT. I just wanted to mention that because it's obviously we don't know at this stage what will happen with the Planning Act applications, but ideally the 2 matters would be heard concurrently at LPAT if they're both there. Just briefly, and you've seen this slide already in Marion's presentation, but I just wanted to, and the entrance there is highlighted in red. There's 3 areas here that you'll see outlined in orange. Those are archaeological sites that have been identified on the property through the Cultural Heritage Investigation. And each of those areas requires further archaeological work or clearing. So they've been identified and are protected as part of the operations plan. The intent of Johnston Brothers is that as they get to each of those areas, they would do the further archaeological work to clear those sites and be able to extract in those areas. But it is fairly extensive as you'll see here. The operation or the rehabilitation plan, so the one on the bottom is the one you've seen, which shows the entire site as a lake. The Ministry of Natural Resources, because of these archaeological sites, they didn't want to assume that the approvals and clearance would be obtained for those sites. So they had asked Bill Bradshaw to prepare this second rehabilitation scenario. And that would be in the case where those archaeological sites were remained and are protected. See those there. And then finally, Marion's mentioned the settlement area strategic employment land designation for this area. The site's about 20 hectares, and I believe that the entire employment land designation is about 80 or 85 hectares in the west end of Komoka. But what I did, and I've provided examples of where there's aggregate operations in settlement areas, but I did want to highlight a few cases where there's aggregate in employment land areas in other parts of the province. And all of these are near major transportation corridors, either on the 401 or the 403. The first one, this is in Cambridge, so just on the north side, you can see the 401 there. And this site, the yellow there is actually residential, so that's future residential for this aggregate site. And then strategic employment and prestige employment is what this area will develop into. Secondly, we have in Ayr. So Ayr is just west of Cambridge, between Cambridge and Kitchener. Again, on the north side of the 401. These are active aggregate licenses right now. And the purple here is Prime Industrial Strategic Reserve. It's unserviced area, but you can see it is part of that employment land designation. Next we have, this is Brantford. So again, these are active aggregate locations on either side of the 403, just east of Rest Acres Road, west of the Grand River. So the gray is it's a special policy area, but the intent here is that the employment uses in that blue area and around the important interchange would extend onto those aggregate lands in the future. And then finally, because I know everybody's probably thinking about what about the below water, this example is Aberfoyle, so just west of or southwest of Guelph along the 401. This is Highway 6 on the west side of the slide here. These are all aggregate operations, obviously all below water, fairly significant production area in the province. The purple here on the screen, and it's just on the east side of the air photo here. So this is the industrial park. It's all unserviced, by the way, but this is the major industrial employment area for Township of Quislinch. This entire area here is in a special policy area that's flagged for future industrial and employment uses. So the municipality has set aside that entire area of aggregate operations for future employment uses. This piece here is all residential, former gravel pit, but this area would be future employment. So I just wanted to share some of those examples with council and with staff. And we're looking forward to further discussions with Marion and the team at the township on the application. So happy to answer questions or may call on Lloyd or Bill to answer them if you have any.
Okay, the next person we have on our list is Mr. Brian Wilson. He's a member of the public who has asked to participate. For the council members, this is one of the individuals with the letter. Yeah, we're nodding. Okay.
Can you hear me, council?
Yes, you're on the screen, or we hear you. Sorry, we see your name on the screen and a box around you. We know you're there.
All we need to do is be heard. That would be fantastic. So yes, I have concern again before, as this lady just said, 2018 to 2020, not having any, a lot of residents concerned about what was going to be happening there. Nothing had happened before that. Personally, I did contact the person that was on the previous letters of contact and found out that it was actually Mr. May's law firm and planning agency that was in charge of that. They had assured me that at no time ever would there be any entering or exiting off of Glendon Drive. That was definitely not going to happen. I live right across the street from this proposed site, and for the past 2 years, I have been waking up 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning on a constant basis. I'm a late night person. I work from 9 in the morning till 11 at night, and tend not to go to bed till late. And being waken up at early times of the morning has not been fun. I also own a home across the street from this, my own residence, and essentially the water system has been completely fouled in the past 2 years, in which the site has been mined for sand, requiring me to get a whole new water system, filtration system, and I'm still not, haven't got that done at this point. In my home, I've lived in my home for 28, 29 years across the street. Never had any issues, and in the last 2 years, again, whether it's a coincidence or not, I can't tell you for sure, but the water in my home has just gone to crap. I'm constantly using, the various cleaners to clean all of my toilet bowls and showers, and within 2 days, I have to keep on doing it. It's every 2 days. Either that, it just gets to be a mess. On the house across the street, I've developed a complete sulfur smell, and that requires extensive water treatment systems. Again, the traffic has been coming off of Glendon Drive. I haven't seen any traffic going outside on Indians Road in the past 2 years. I don't know, when the temporary license was issued in the last 2 years to have them mine the sand, but it's been constant. And I am certainly concerned about the water tables and the property, my property values. I'm concerned about. Again, speaking to realtors, they're, the kind of word is, sell and get out while you can. I've been quite happy living there. However, I don't see that happening if this continues on. I don't even have any hope that we're going to have a water system as such. Again, these underground, veins of water are like blood vessels. They go all over the place, and no one can say for sure, well, we're going to stop. We're going to dig down, 50 feet, 25 feet, whatever number of feet it is, and we're not going to be affecting your water vein. Well, it's already affecting your water vein, and it's not anywhere kind of close to where it's going to be as far as what they're proposing for this, sand pit. Again, the dangers of the trucks coming in and off of Glen Drive. Last summer, I was trying to get into my laneway, and one of the dump trucks slammed on its brakes and skidded for about 50 or 60 feet. The tracks from the truck were there all summer long. Anyone and everyone could see it, and I feel it's making it very dangerous to live there. I don't know how you plan on making it safe to come in off of Ammons Road. Again, traffic lights, extending the highway to perhaps 4 lanes instead of just the 2 or the 3 that we're proposing. 4 would be possible. I really don't know. Everyone knows there's always police, policing the roads there. There's a lot of speeders going up and down Glendon Drive. That's nothing to do with this proposal. However, it is a concern when it comes to dump trucks leaving Glendon Drive and getting onto Glendon Drive, and cars having to slow down. And we certainly see it where there's 10 and 15 cars that are stopped behind a dump truck getting onto Glendon Drive. It does take them a bit of time to ramp back up to speed. Again, I can't say enough about the concern I have of property values. I've got 2 homes just kitty corner each other on Glendon Drive. One in which is, the site is like within, feet, it seems like, of the proposed extension of this, sand pit, gravel pit, and and these other things, other business activities that could eventually happen there. I wasn't even really aware of these other things until recently. That's certainly not going to make it a pleasant place to live, and I certainly don't know what it's going to be like for people that live in the surrounding areas, including Oriole Park and things like that. I know that these campgrounds, they have enough problems with keeping their water safe for all the residents. I can't imagine that they're going to be able to guarantee that Oriole Park's water system will not be affected by this. I think it'd be an impossibility, as they've already mentioned here on several occasions, that they're digging well below the water tables, and our water tables are certainly not deep. At my house, my well is dug down 10 to 15 feet at my own home for my water table, for my drinking water. And again, I have noticed extensive, differences in my water. I've even replaced one of my taps because it became all corroded. And on the other home, as I say, I've had to take out the water conditioning system out of that completely because it was just destroyed. All the copper pipes that were in the home have gone black from sulfur. I think that's what I have to say at this moment. I'd like to also be assured in some way of, I guess, if they were ever, looking at actually approving this site, what would be used to monitor and to guarantee that trucks don't just go back to their old habit of coming in and off of Glendon Drive, which they have been doing for the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Your comments have been noted and recorded. And so tonight there's no decision. This is just an opportunity for comments from the public and questions from councillors for clarification. So thank you for participating, and I will now move to Mr. Peter Reid, another member of the public who has written and has requested to participate. Is Mr. Reid there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. My internet's pretty crazy, so I won't show you my video, and hopefully my audio works. I'm glad I'm following Brian, because to me, he's being maybe more affected at this point because the trucks have been going in and out. We're actually wondering how it is that they can bring all that sand over the last 2 years out of there without having a permit. We don't get that. And I believe it was because the homeowner said that they was going to be extending a pond so that he could irrigate, but he's never used it for that purpose. It seems to me that he's just gathering money from the trucks that are coming and going. But coming out into Glendon has been a terribly unsafe thing. It holds up traffic. The trucks don't seem to be patient enough to wait for vehicles. And I can see that down on Amiens is going to be the same thing. It's a corner, or it's a curve where Amiens joins. So that whole area will have to be reconstructed. His talk about the water quality, we have also noticed a terrible change in our water quality. It is becoming, we've been here since 1972, and the water's always been great, but now we have to have a system, and we're going to have another system come to get the iron out, because there's way more iron than there used to be. Our toilets are becoming yellow. The water's yellow. We have to treat our water now where we didn't have to before. And it's all during this 2-year period that Brian was talking about, when they continually took more sand and made that pond over there deeper. I'm right across the street. I'm at 9629 Glendon Drive, which is right across the street from the proposed site. And we're concerned also about our property value. I believe you have my other comments there. One thing that we're always mentioning all these complaints and so on, but I understand that there is a need for this kind of employment. There's a need for this kind of thing in the county, especially with the proximity things that Marion had mentioned. But I also feel that if you're going to do something that really impacts other people, that you should be compensating these people. You should be making kind of compromises with them, such as, it wouldn't cost too much for them to be providing us with better water systems for our homes, pay for that, perhaps pay for the devaluation of our properties, because I've heard it's up to 15%. Well, that's not our fault. That's because somebody is getting an application or trying for an application. So why can't we not be compensated for that? We had at one point a asphalt plant across the tracks towards Kamoka while they were building the 402 in the 80s, and we couldn't breathe. We couldn't be outside of our home in the summertime because of the smell from the asphalt plant. Well, this asphalt plant, if he's allowed to have an asphalt plant, would be right across the street. The gases and noxious air would be just terrible. I haven't heard from Marion or anybody else, Melanie, about what they intend to do with that, but I did hear that they were thinking of allowing them to have that. So yeah, if you've got my list of suggestions for mitigation, hopefully, because I sent that in earlier last week or this week, and so hopefully you can concern yourselves with those as well. I would like to add, though, again, with the having the entrance on Amiens Drive, I'm not sure that's even going to help with the traffic on Glendon, because eventually it'll come to Glendon. Yeah, so I think that's all. Brian and I have pretty well covered, I think, our issues, and we're hoping that if this goes ahead, that somehow out of all the money that these people are going to be making out of this, they can compensate us local homeowners that are going to have to suffer with it all. Thank you.
Thank you for participating, Mr. Next, we have John and Betty Turvey, also members of the public who have also provided a document with observations and comments. Oh, there you are.
Yes, I was concerned that I thought my connection had just dropped there right then. But anyway, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for letting us speak tonight. My name is John Turvey. I actually live in Embro, Ontario, but I am speaking on behalf of my mother, Betty Turvey, who lives at 966 Glendon Drive to the east of the property. Just for background and context, we have been part of the process involving the license and have participated at the previous public meeting on that, and have in fact continued to object to the licensing process, and have been doing so since it first came to light in July of 2018. You have an extensive letter from us tonight with most of our concerns, and I won't take up a lot of time going through all of that. That's well documented there. But ultimately, we believe that using these lands for a gravel pit with extraction below the water table and a rehabilitation plan that calls for these lands to be returned to a pond is a poor land use decision, given the current designation of the lands in the official plan as a strategic employment area. We think it's short-sighted. We think it will have significant impacts on the neighboring landowners. And in fact, it has significant impacts on the municipality. And it is contrary to what's intended in terms of the long-term vision in the official plan for these lands. In part, the concern stems from the fact my mother's lands are also designated strategic employment lands. And so if there are limitations on what can happen in her lands because of what happens on these lands, that impacts her directly. So we've highlighted a number of things in our letter. We've identified concerns about traffic impacts, noise, hydrology, natural heritage and environmental impacts. And one thing I would say that frustrates me a little is that there are things that I know were circulated in tonight's information that we know It's our understanding from our working through the licensing process that there have been updates or changes, and that information necessarily wasn't provided tonight. And I think that's a bit of a concern when there were changes, as we understand it, to the hydrogeology report, for example. But again, as I've said, I think the primary concern tonight is the land use issues, and our focus is on the concerns about the strategic employment area. Ultimately, I think our biggest concern is that, A, we don't think that something that's going to be around for 18 years is an interim land use. That's how long the pit will take to extract based on what they say is there in terms of resource. And to me, 18 years is essentially a generation. So I really struggle with this notion of interim. And ultimately, if the plan is to rehabilitate back to a pond, that has significant impacts, both in terms of the pond's location, which means you would no longer, if you were proposing these lands for manufacturing uses, be able to access the railway line, for example, which might limit the types of uses that could be developed in the future. And ultimately, it means that you really can't use these lands for strategic employment. If it's a pond, it's a pond. So I think that's our most significant concern. I know the proponent will also say that these lands there's nothing that prevents extraction within a settlement area, and that there are many examples of extractions in settlement areas across the province. However, in many cases, that reflects the fact that the settlement area boundary has been expanded over time to include those aggregate operations, while they've continued to be in active production. That's not what this is. In this instance, the lands are currently not identified on that aggregates overlay in your official plan, and the lands have already been included in the settlement area. In other words, these lands were designated strategic employment area first. The existence of the tertiary aggregate resource in this property has been known for years. It's in various mineral aggregate reports that the province publishes, and yet it's not recognized by the county or the municipality in their official plans. Clearly, the intent wasn't to protect these lands for gravel extraction. Permitting this gravel pit fundamentally changes the intended development outcome for the lands. Provincial policy doesn't prohibit gravel pits in settlement areas, but it equally doesn't say that they must occur. And on the other hand, provincial policies are very clear that employment areas need to be protected and preserved. And more importantly, the Middlesex Centre official plan, while it provides and recognizes that aggregate extraction can occur in the settlement area, it is subject to preserving the long-term use of the land for designated settlement area functions. That simply cannot be accomplished if aggregate extraction is permitted below the water table. So again, and the last thing I would say is we also raised a number of concerns about alternative locations, and we believe there's in fact lots of tertiary aggregate resource that's available that could be considered that would be outside of the strategic employment area. So thank you for your time and consideration. I understand you're not making a decision tonight in the application, but we simply believe that you should in fact turn this application down. But barring that it requires some significant additional work to address the outstanding issues and concerns. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your comments and your document, Mr. Turvey. It's we have received it and it has been circulated to council. We now have Mr. Robert Huber, who is representing the Thames River Anglers. We see you.
Good evening. Can you hear me well too?
Yes, we can hear you as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council, staff, as well as the members of the public that have joined here tonight to provide their feedback on this. And I appreciate the opportunity to share our concerns regarding the request to rezone this property for the use of aggregate extraction. I'm the president of the Thames River Anglers Association. We operate a hatchery that's located at 9701 Glendon Drive. It would be south of Glendon Drive on the Hacklanders property. And we draw water from a cold water aquifer that feeds into Kamoka Creek that we use to operate our trout hatchery there for the last 25 years. We obviously had some serious concerns with even the suggestion that such a large gravel pit would be planned in an area that has direct influence on the groundwater and on the aquifers that that we require in order to operate the trout hatchery that that we have, working there. Those concerns were also identified in the report that the Upper Thames Conservation Authority provided, where they indicated that the subject lands are in a highly vulnerable area that includes significant groundwater recharge areas as well as an aquifer. They had made some suggestions regarding perhaps starting the digging closer to Amiens Drive and working eastward to see whether or not there was an impact, which were disregarded. And then failing any sort of acknowledgement or kind of working with them, they had suggested some efforts to either put in monitoring in place. I believe they called it like a hobo monitor within the creek to see if there's any changes in stream temperature. And they had also looked to see what sort of mitigation would be done if there was a dramatic change in the temperature of Kamoka Creek or a change in the water levels of the groundwater beneath the land. I'm looking through these reports, scrambling through them, in fact, because we really didn't even know that this meeting was going to happen until Sunday afternoon. We were at the Hacklander's property and he shared with us a photocopy of the notice. Even though we had provided a letter of objection, met with the Ministry of Environment on this, and in fact, I appeared before a provincial delegation regarding the changes to the Aggregate Resource Act not too long ago as well. So the problem is that, what we're talking about is building a gravel pit, and there's lots of places that you can build a gravel pit. What there isn't is a lot of places where you have a creek, Kamoka Creek, that is within the Thames River watershed and within southwestern Ontario, one of the cleanest, healthiest trout-bearing streams in southern Ontario. Just within the report cards for the Upper Thames Conservation within the area, it is the single highest graded stream that exists there. It's the reason why we have our trout hatchery there, and we raise over 100,000 trout per year, which we then with the help of the Upper Thames and with the Ministry of Natural Resources, transplanted them into other creeks like Medway Creek, Dingman Creek, all throughout the London area. So we provide a vital education purpose, an environmental purpose, and we're doing something that's just good for what needs to be there. If the temperature of the water changes by even 5 degrees, the stream is no longer trout bearing at that point. It can no longer sustain the cold water fish species. There's no reversing of that either, right? It's not like we can just fill in the gravel pit and put it back to the way things were before. If the groundwater dries up that exists there that we use for the hatchery, there isn't another location or some other thing where we can just change what we're doing and go somewhere else. Having the landowner relations to be able to operate a trout hatchery on a piece of property, we've been doing this for over 2 decades because we have such a strong relationship with the Wales family and then the Hacklanders. And that's not an easy thing to replicate, where you're allowing people to come on your land and run a trout hatchery in this era where insurance companies make anything like that really, really difficult to do. So, trying our best to kind of make sure that we're really looking at the information and the data that's being shared there. To the best of my knowledge and what I can see, is they've done their best through the report from Novaterra and Biologic, to say that there would be no impact on Kamoka Creek. They're pretty close to it, but they'd say there's no impact on Kamoka Creek because of the southeasterly flow of the groundwater. Well, that's the southeasterly direction of it. And if you look at the map that I provided in our comments, that's exactly where our hatchery is southeasterly of the actual proposed site location. We don't draw our water directly from the Kamoka Creek. So this is, it doesn't really appease that. And I don't see anything within the stages of, since we've provided the objection letter, I don't see the work that they've done to address those concerns, besides providing these reports themselves. So it's very, it seems like it's very easy just to hire a consultant and say, we don't think this is going to have an impact on anything, and you're just going to have to trust us on it. When in fact, if they're wrong, or if the mitigation measures aren't put in place, or measuring or any sort of monitoring to do that, there is no recourse. There's no way to to perhaps stop the project or to do anything that would actually be able to protect the natural environment. And when you review your county plans, the strategic plans that you have for the county, there are a lot of areas that are on there that highlight the importance of protecting natural areas and protecting these type of features because they enhance the neighborhoods that are around them. They enhance the community. I don't know anybody that moves to a neighborhood and says, man, I'd really like to live close to the gravel pit. You know, that to me, like I like a big fence in my backyard, you know, next to a 9-meter deep pond that used to be resource extraction. That's not going to draw the community in. And I'm not really that convinced that it's this big source of creating job opportunity in the community either, besides for a couple, you know, backhoe operators and things like that. There are much better ways that that land could be used. I'm not suggesting that a massive, you know, 600 unit condominium complex or houses would be an appropriate way to maybe protect that natural area. But right now it is clean, it's healthy there. And I really do feel that if the council decides to approve that zoning application, it would be something that they would regret in the future, that they would look back on it and realize we probably shouldn't have done that. And we're so concerned about this that, in fact, the Minister of the Environment, Jeff Urick, as well as the Minister of Natural Resources and Fisheries, are planning a site visit to the hatchery in the next couple of weeks. We have something set up. It was supposed to happen a week ago, but we had some quarantining issues with COVID. And failing that, the only other recourse is to take it forward under for a federal review under the Impact Assessment Act, similar to what's going on with the air and wastewater management plant up on the West Credit River. When it's identified that a project proponent has ignored the concerns and that it has a direct impact on fisheries, in particular cold water fisheries, you know, moving it forward for a federal review is a course of action that you know, they're more than happy to take that path. So I think with the amount of objection to this, the concerns that the staff have made within the report that they provided, this just doesn't seem like a really good idea. And it's something that I hope that, you know, there's lots of things that are fairly easy for council to approve in terms of zoning changes. This should be one that on this, you know, if there was a good reason to kind of trust your gut and say, maybe we shouldn't approve this zoning change, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that your gut is probably correct.
Oops, sorry, I had to push start. So thank you. I take it that's, you've completed your comment part. Yes. Robert? Okay, I appreciate you coming and presenting your views tonight. And we'll move to the next person, which is Frank McDonald. Are you there, Frank?
Hi, sorry, I just pushed that by accident.
So you're on mute, Frank. Okay, you have the floor.
No, I accidentally, I didn't want to speak at this time. I would definitely like to take part at a future event.
Okay, well, thank you for staying on the line to let us know then.
Okay, thanks.
We'll see you next time. Good night. And I understand that Helen and David are not here. So that brings us to the end of the public comments and requests for speaking. So next I will move then to members of council. Is there anything anyone wants to ask for clarification or? No, nothing? Okay, I did have one question. Sorry. Oh, your hand's up, sorry. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just had for Marion one, I assume for Marion, one clarification. I thought that all the documents I read was the finished, when it's all finished, it would be, you know, agriculture, agricultural versus now the employment. But then something you said made me think that you said employment instead of agriculture. Can we just clarify in the end what it's planned to be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cates, I believe. The end use after rehabilitation is, it goes back to the existing or the current land use designation, which is settlement employment. Currently, the lands are used for agricultural purposes. So, but the intent for the future of those lands are for employment land. So it's intended for that land to eventually be used for employment, but it is currently used for agricultural lands. So hopefully that clears it up, but I can clarify it more if you wish.
Thank you. It does clear it up. I just think maybe some different reports might have a different answer. So I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, and I have a question too. You may be able to answer it, Marion, but maybe the proponent will have to clarify. One of the residents commented about the recency of the reports and changes. And I guess my question is, the reports that we've been reading, do we know that those are the most current versions, or should we be looking for updated content? Can you comment on that, or should I ask that of Melanie?
Madam Mayor, I think it would be best to ask Melanie. We receive and we trust the applicants are sending us their most recent reports. So perhaps Melanie will be able to answer that.
Yeah, yes, I'm happy to answer that, Madam Mayor. So the reports that were included with the application are the original reports, and they're unchanged. What I think you've heard referred to this evening is supplementary correspondence and clarification memos from, for example, the hydrogeologist or the ecologist in response to letters from the provincial agencies, so MECP, MNRF, and Upper Thames. That we did have a discussion with staff and the township at the township a few months ago, and had shared that those all the correspondence on the file is certainly available. I thought, in fact, I had made it available, shared it with staff, but of course we're happy to provide it again if need be. It's not, so the reports are unchanged to answer the question, but there is additional correspondence that resolved the agency concerns. So on groundwater, for example, questions from the Ministry of the Environment to make absolutely sure that they had no concerns whatsoever with impacts on groundwater, water well supplies. Those have been answered, and the Ministry of Environment has signed off.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Anyone else? Last call then? Okay, so the motion before us then is that report PLA 29-2021 regarding Official Plan Amendment 53 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment 29/20 be received for information. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. And that brings us to the end of public meetings. So we can now ask, I will now ask that the Planning Committee does now close the planning public meetings and reconvene as regular council at 8:48 p.m. Could I have a mover, please, and a second? Deputy Councillor Arndt is promoted. Sorry, you're not fired. So, yeah, and Councillor Shipley. I'm sorry. All in favor for that? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. They're all gone. That's all good. Okay. So we did a correspondence already, and we did the county council update. So we're moving to other business, and we have 2 items that are now outstanding from our council. So I'll ask James for the wording on the first part that we talked about, which was Dan's the request to have Dan look into. Yeah. Okay, that one. So we have wording from our clerk on that.
Thank you for that, Mayor DeVete. So through the chair, this is just circling back to the beginning of our meeting and the discussions occurring around the first minor variance application that we heard, and looking at having staff be directed to review existing provisions contained in our zoning bylaw as it relates to interior yard setbacks and minimum lot coverage within the residential area, And I've noted this as of Edgeview Crescent, but that I know that that does slightly expand beyond that one crescent area as described by Mayor DeVete and captured by Dan during the presentation. So it is the area of Edgeview Crescent and those adjoining streets, I would say. That is the direction wording that we're seeking, and we're seeking a mover and seconder for that to provide that direction to our planner.
Sue, you have a question? Yeah.
I just want to clarify, because tonight we had for Union and for Edgeview. So are we looking at giving like a blanket thing for the planner? Is that the?
Yeah, maybe you could expand. I was really actually focusing on the one, because that whole area on Union, we're looking at what, 1 or 2 more houses. So I don't know if that makes, yeah, I take direction from staff on that. I'm not an expert.
Yeah, through the chair, we could do it we can have Dan look at the pros and cons of looking at a blanket approach. And then we can also hone in on Edgeview to consider those lots too. So why don't we do a report that looks at all of it, and we can report back and figure out what we deem is best.
So, okay, so, because there's a difference, you know, Union was a 49-foot lot with a 2-story house, and Edgeview is a 72-foot wide with a bungalow.
Except the ones on Crestview, the lots are narrower.
Right.
It's just that it's part of the same development.
Right.
The lots are not the same size.
Yeah.
In any of those, any of those, the one tonight was wider than the 2 that we did before. But I was thinking more along, we were talking about a single family home, which gets bigger versus the 2. Maybe there's, I don't know, the planners will come up with that, but.
Yeah. Just to add in on that and through the chair, fortunately, I've heard back from Dan, our planner, and he is going to look at, as part of that report, lands currently zoned UR1 in the Southwind subdivision. So that'll help effectively capture the different properties and types of properties we've been discussing here over the last moment or two.
Ask the pro. UR1, that's what we'll look at.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else want clarification or have questions about
This
that?
will come back to us, right?
Yes, that report will come back, and then we'll have to listen to it and decide whether it makes sense for that to happen or not.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, Councillor Ernst.
To your Madam Mayor, I just had, if we do the report and if we change the distances, does that mean there will be no minor variances anymore because we've expanded what they're allowed to have? Or are they still gonna, we're gonna give them more and then they're still gonna come back for more? Because then that's kind of redundant, isn't it?
I can comment on that. With the minor variance being a process under the Planning Act, we'll never do away with applications, so to speak, for those types of, those applications can be made under the Planning Act at any time, regardless of the provisions we put in place. So those will may continue to come forward. What we can do with this report is ask staff to look at if we're commonly receiving a number of variance requests for the same type of item. Do we look at perhaps amending the zoning for a particular type of property wherein those items continue to come forward? If it's the type of item that council has shown they're comfortable consistently approving each time it comes forward. So it's really more of an effort to manage the volume of applications that may come in and when one might be required. That helps to clarify.
Do you want to comment as well?
Through the chair, the clerk hit the head on the nail on the head, but just the last piece of it is just, it's an what initiated this conversation was an opportunity to streamline process, because we've noticed and observed that there have been applications one meeting after the next dealing with these types of instances. So if we can give direction to our planner and we can work with him to see how we can maybe adjust our zoning bylaw and the requirements under it, it might curtail the amount of applications that are coming forward, where we can do some sort of like policy. It won't clean everything, but it might help us with our efficiency when we're taking on these applications in our meeting protocols.
So,
yes, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So as Councillor Art said, so that's what my wondering, or my initial thought is that if you, for example, we had 4.9 feet on one side and 8 feet on another, and so both of them tonight sort of put it down almost to 4.9 or just a hair smaller. So if we were to make something to basically say, you know, it's okay if you have 4.9 on both. Well, my only thought is that, does this now mean that everybody's just we're allowed to build it that big, so they're just going to start building them to that big, and meanwhile the neighbor doesn't have a chance, or no, somebody doesn't have a chance to provide any input? That's all I'm wondering, if it's taking away the job of the process.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, because we don't want to handcuff or make, yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
So we'll see what comes back, and then we'll have a chat about that then, and we'll decide. Okay, thank you, staff. And the other item that we need to cover under other business is that this whole process with the gravel pit and the application for that license, and our own planning process tonight that started tonight, the other process has already started, and there's a potential that that license might be granted before we are even halfway through our zoning bylaw amendment, I mean our official plan amendment. So I think it's a good idea that we might want to ask staff or our CAO to provide correspondence to the Ministry of Natural Resources indicating that we have concerns with regard to this application, and that that they're aware of where we stand and what our position is, and some of the details that are relevant to that discussion they're made aware of. So unless council's opposed to that, we could provide direction and ask Michael to reach out to the, yes, go ahead, John.
Can we ask our CEO to ask them to defer making granting that license until we get through our planning process?
That would be ideal.
Because I think our planning process should go first before the extraction license is issued, because if it's not zoned properly, then I don't think the extraction license is valid. So I think we should be on the leading edge, and they can get after us.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, I don't think it's consistent with our policy, and
Yeah, through the chair, point taken. So I'll, if council's in concurrence, I'll draft correspondence with our own legal counsel to make sure that and incorporate and get that issued out.
I think that would make sense.
Yeah. Is anyone opposed to that or have any concern or take issue? No, everyone's, yeah. Okay, then you have direction to do that. Okay, thank you very much. So that just leaves the bylaws, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, okay. So we have 11 bylaws tonight. The motion is that bylaw number 2021, that is -23 through 2021 to -033 be adopted as printed. If I could have a mover and a seconder for those. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And that is carried. And all we need now is a motion to adjourn. It is that Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the March 24th, 2021 meeting at, oh shoot, just 8:58 p.m. Councillor Scott and Councillor Case, thank you. And all in favor of that? And that carries. Thank you very much.